And we're back with another one. Good morning. Starting it off. Half awake. God, I didn't want to get up this morning. Half the mornings I don't want to get up. I hate waking up. Anyway, I guess it's better than not waking up. Anyway, we're back with another one. And, yeah, so we're pretty much, there's something I kind of want to discuss with everyone of what's going on a little bit here. So, I want to talk about grading and singles for once, because we really don't do that a whole lot on this channel. And, you know, I wouldn't say that grading and singles is like dead, but I would say buying singles right now is like really, you know, because I found myself down this path a while ago where like I was just like fucking watching Mimic Brew videos and fucking buying like shitloads of singles and like literally chasing like little fucking stupid bags, just like being like, oh fuck it, man, you know, like it'll be worth more in 10 years. It'll be worth more in 10 years, you know. And you get in this cycle of buying a lot of singles and thinking they're going to be worth a lot in 10 years. And I want to break down why that mindset does not work, like, at all. Now, like, Shining Fates, for example, like, when I was first in the hobby, Shining Fates prices of, like, shit was, like, through the roof compared to now. Like, that Eternatus gold card was, like, $400 in a PSA 10. Now it's, like, probably fucking $50. You know, I haven't really checked in a minute. That's how boring it is. But, there is money in grading singles. You know, like, really, if you're gonna do anything, is to learn how to get a very good eye for what is a PSA 10. To train your eyes on how to really check for centering, how to check for whitening. Like, it's pretty fucking obvious for the most part. It's just learning the centering part and the corners parts. And once you master that, you can almost pretty much pick 10s all day. But I want to explain that if you are going for singles and you're fucking around in this dangerous singles market, and it is dangerous, the only thing to go for is like grading plays, essentially, and PSA 10s. And as much as I don't like buying any PSA 10s, I feel like on mega chase cards like your Gengars, your Blazikins, your Rayquazas, you know, your stuff like that, buying PSA 10s is probably not a terrible, terrible idea. But it's probably not going to do as good as sealed. But, now, grading is like a whole different animal. Like, you can make a ton of money grading, you know, like you can buy, you know, like raw Gengars for like 500 and then grade them, well, 600 and then, you know, grade them and, you know, then they'd be worth 1300, you know. So, like, grading plays are good, you know, and they honestly will make you the fastest kind of quick money around. But you're waiting, you know, a couple months to get your stuff back, which is a pain in the ass. But grading plays are not bad. They're just a whole different animal of making money. Now, but I want to break this down for people that may collect like PSA 9s or PSA 1s or 5s or whatever, because I see a lot of misinformation floating around out there. Of guys saying like, well, you know, collect PSA 1s, you know, because it's really hard to get stuff to grade 1s and all this crap. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Now, and I want to break this down, and this will be an education lesson for you guys. Glaceon from Mystic Dawn. I don't know if you guys know the card or not. It recently went up from $7,000 in a PSA 10, big money, to $10,000 in a PSA 10. So Glaceon from Mystic Dawn, if you can find a perfect copy, and grade it, and it gets a 10, you turn $180 into $10,000. Like, I just want to throw that out there. So there are really good grading plays. Really good grading plays. I mean, same with like base set Charizard. I mean, if you can find a base set Charizard for first edition base Charizard for like, I don't even know, what are they, like 10 grand raw, I think, or something like that. Even if you have to pay a little bit more money for a premium one, and then you grade it yourself and it comes back at 10, you're pretty much rich. So essentially, with grading, I mean, you really could technically do this. You would have to get really lucky. But like, let's say hypothetically, you take $160. Let's just say $200. You buy a Glaceon from Mystic Dawn in perfect condition. You find it at a card show, hypothetically. Someone doesn't really know any better. They're just selling it raw. You buy it for $200 or $300. Let's say you give them an extra $100 because you just think it's really nice. You buy it, send it to PSA, wait 2 months, and grade it, and it comes back at 10. You're ecstatic. You just turned $200 to $300 into literally $10,000. So you're pretty ecstatic, And then you go from there and you sell it for $10,000. Now, you take said $10,000, you start looking around, you find, some miraculous way you find a first edition base set Charizard in mint condition, but someone's selling it for raw price. And like I said, I'm not sure what raw price is at this point, but let's say hypothetically 10 grand, maybe 12 grand, whatever. Like, I really have to check prices in a minute. So I could be wrong on this. But I'm just saying you could do this with certain vintage cards. It's mint. It's 10 worthy. You pay a little extra for it or whatever. You get it. And then you grade it yourself. It comes back at 10. And now you have a 200... What's Charizard PSA 10? I think it's at least 200K, if not 400K. So... now you just basically turned your 10 grand into like 200K at least. So, like grading plays can literally make you filthy rich. Like, it's fucking disgusting. Like Lugia, for example, from Silver Tempest. You can buy it for like $300 in perfect condition that someone just pulled. Grade it. But you really gotta learn how to check it for yourself with Beckett. And you could turn a $300 card into $6,000. Like, these are all plays you can do. They're fucking risky, like any easy money fucking scheme is in life. But I see people do them all the time. Like, I have friends that literally sent in, Lugias into Beckett, and they've graded Beckett 10s, and they went and sold them for $6 grand. So. Like, basically grading really is a money glitch. It's just learning how to work with the grading companies and, how to send them in the right way and all that stuff. And to learn how to check yourself. But I'm going to explain why, if you believe in any card, you should just buy it in a PSA 10. And I actually learned this from... I didn't learn it from Alpha Investments or anybody like that. I actually learned it from a friend of mine that collects baseball cards. They always said, if you want something, buy the best chase card and get it in the 10. And that's really the only way to go. And, like I said, I'm not a massive fan of paying for 10s, but there's a massive premium on 10s. Like Glaceon from Mystic Dawn. If you get the 9, it's only like $400 compared to $10,000. And over time, it doesn't make a difference. If it's not in perfect condition, it's not going to be worth a lot of money. And that is just how it is. Like, it's going to be worth tremendously less money. I mean, Like, look at base set first edition Charizard, or just base set Charizard, let's say. It's like, what, 11 grand on a PSA 10? And a PSA 9 is like almost unsellable, Like, really. Like, PSA 9, you're looking at like, I forget the prices, but, less than $1,000. So, and that's for old cards from the 90s. What the hell do you think cards from now will do 10 years down the road from now that aren't in perfect condition? That's why I say collecting nines, eights, seven, six, fives, all of them, is a waste of time. A total waste of time. Now, collecting tens, that can pay off, because like Latios from Team Up is a $6,000 card in a 10. But raw, it's not really worth a shit ton. And it's the same with, in a PSA 9 or an 8 or like, that's why PSA 10s are extremely important if you're fucking around in the singles market. That even with like 20 years of age, a single can still set there if the condition is not perfect and never go up. I mean, look at base set. Like you can buy an Aerodactyl raw for $11. And you can even find some pretty mint Aerodactyls for $11, which is crazy because the art on that card is so beautiful. And like I recently picked up one for like $11. And if I get it graded at 10, it's like $5.50, which I think it is 10 condition. So that's what I like to do a lot is just buy raw cards, if anything, that are perfect. And if I find one that's perfect, I'll pretty much buy it no matter what. Almost like if the art's decent, I'll pretty much buy it no matter what because I feel in my head that you're getting a PSA 10 worthy card for the price of a raw card. And to me, that's a screaming buy. Because eventually down the road, you can just have it graded yourself. So, yeah. But it kind of shows that it's like base set cards are like still pretty much worthless. I mean, you could build a picture frame of every base set card that isn't like in perfect condition. Hell, almost even if it isn't perfect condition, you could build a picture frame of every base set card if you wanted and put it on your wall for like under $1,000. You could have every card from base set for well under $1,000. Maybe not in perfect condition, but like for display purposes, you could have Charizard, Chansey, Blastoise, Venusaur, every card from base set for under $1,000. Now you start breaking out every card in a PSA 10, yeah, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars. But realistically, you could have every regular base set card for like pennies at this point. And these are vintage cards, like you would think like base set cards should be extremely expensive, just for the collectability, and the nostalgia, like, Gyarados, base set Gyarados, beautiful card. But that was my first holo I ever had was a base set Gyarados. But, it's like, but it's not, you can find a base set Gyarados for like $15. $15. You can find a Gyarados, and Aerodactyl and base set Charizard even. You can find a base set Charizard for like $200-$300. And if it's not in perfect condition, I would just say don't even buy it because it's so hard to resell. That's just kind of where things are. That if it's not in perfect condition, it doesn't matter how old it gets. But I will say the cards in perfect condition that are either gradable or graded, that is what is valuable over time. That is what brings the big money, is PSA 10 stuff. That if you're comparing it to PSA 9 stuff, it will always be way more valuable the older it gets, And, that's just how I look at it, is like, Like, even my Gengar from Fusion Strike at PSA 10, it's just like, I bought it as pretty much an investment of just like, I knew buying Fusion Strike booster boxes would eventually get ridiculously out of hand and expensive. That, eventually chasing the Gengar just wouldn't make sense. So, that PSA 10 versions should be pretty fucking expensive, in my opinion. They should be a lot more expensive than they are right now. And that's why, like, sometimes PSA 10 cards are not a terrible idea. Like the Gengar. Like, in my opinion, I think $12.50 for that Gengar, like right now, in PSA 10 is really not a bad deal. You know? Um, just because it's a lot of fucking around to grade cards. It really is. But once you get good at it, you can make a ton of money grading cards. It's just you have to get the eye for it. But, in my opinion, I think the Gengar is undervalued. Like, I think it should be $2,000 to $3,000 in a PSA 10. But that's just my opinion. I still think buying sealed is pretty much the way to go, especially if you just want the safe bet. That's why I don't really give you guys too much singles advice on here very often. I just say some stuff that I think should do good, but, the singles market is very, very fucking random and very tough to predict. But, like, I'm just saying, people were dropping $1,600 on Gengar and PSA 10 like it was no problem. They were spending even $2,000 on it a couple months ago. So, I mean, it seems to me like the Gengar is due a run up. Since Fusion Strike now went up. I mean, it's almost kind of necessary. But that's just my opinion. I think to grab the Gengar. Like, if you're gonna grab Gengar or Moonbreon, I would grab the Gengar over Moonbreon because it's cheaper. It's a better looking card in my opinion, and I think long term it will just do better than the Moonbreon. But if you are going to grab a single, Gengar probably is that single to grab. Anyway, that's everything we have for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. But yeah, you can make tons of money grading, and PSA 10 cards are where it's at, because no matter how old they get, if they're not in perfect condition, trust me, there's millions upon millions of base set Charizards that someone left in their fucking drawer and they got a couple scratches on them. Like, there's nothing rare about that. That condition really is everything when it comes to singles. And it doesn't matter how old they get, they will still pretty much be worthless unless they're perfect. Anyway, that's everything we have. Doesn't mean that, hey, if you want to collect them and do your own thing, whatever. But if you're investing and have that, I'm going to hold it for 10-year mindset, you might as well get the best of the best cards, But just go with booster boxes because it's just that guaranteed route pretty much. That if you're not going to touch something for 10 years, that's the safest route. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this one. That's all we have for today. And yeah, I'll be back with another video.